I'm Dr. Barbie Hessel, and I'm with Simply Being Therapy in Nashville, Tennessee. And today I was hoping to share a couple of practices that I find to be really effective of mindfulness and meditation practices, and also ones that I have used with basically every single one of my clients at this point, and that these practices have been really effective for them as well. And so the first thing, the first practice is it doesn't have a fancy name, and we're just going to call it pausing. And that's really because, the idea of this comes from Tara Brach, if you're familiar with her. She's a mindfulness meditation guru. She writes about self-compassion. She's just amazing. She has a website. You can kind of check her out and see everything that's there. But anyhow, in her books, she talks about pausing and the importance of taking a couple of moments to yourself each day to be centered and maybe even to help you transition between one event to another or one situation to another. And she doesn't really provide structure for the pause. Essentially, you're just centering yourself, you're just taking a moment, whether it's 20 seconds or whether it's 20 minutes. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of structure to help guide you throughout that pause, however long it is for you. And after we do that, I'm going to explain why it was that we did what we did, because it's always helpful to have the knowledge and understanding. So before we get started, I'm going to invite you to really set up your environment. So whether that means lighting a candle that you really like, grabbing some essential oils, cozying up with a pillow or a blanket, just really, changing the lighting or the temperature in the room, just really setting up your environment so that it's an environment that you can feel safe in and that you can kind of relax into. And as you're doing that, I'd also like you to consider where you want to sit. So you might be finding a comfy chair, you might be sitting or laying on your yoga mat or on your bed. Whatever place feels comfortable, just gravitate towards that, with your pillow and blankets or whatever it is, and really get settled into that position. And I'll give you guys a couple of moments to do that. Okay, so now that you're comfortable, I'm going to first invite you to orient. And by that, I mean to check out your surroundings. And I'm going to do each of these steps along with you, right? So what I mean is, kind of look around, look above you, let your eyes wander, let them go wherever it is they want to go and focus on whatever it is they are drawn to. Really checking out your surroundings and also maybe noticing smells in the air or sounds in the room, texture of things, whether it's your clothing or your seat. Just really orienting using all of your senses to your surroundings. When you're ready, I'm going to invite you to begin noticing your breathing. So I like to use a hand on my chest, and you don't see this one, but a hand on my belly to do this, but you don't need to. So just inviting you to focus on your breathing. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to start taking deep breaths. You don't need to manage it in any way. Just notice. And if you're able, you might even notice your heartbeat. And then you might begin to scan your body, head to toe, and just kind of bringing attention to wherever there's any kind of holding, whether that's a sensation of bracing or tension, or maybe on the flip side, what you're holding is numbness or disconnection. But just scanning and becoming aware of those spaces that feel that way, and just bringing your attention there. Again, not needing to change anything. And finally, draw your attention to something comfortable. And that might be a space within you that feels comfortable. Maybe you've noticed some expansion or some softening. Or maybe that's something externally that's creating some comfort for you. Whether it be a pillow on your back or fluffy socks on your feet, whatever that might be. And just hang out with that comfort for a couple of moments. And when you're ready, you're going to slowly open your eyes and join back together with me. And just notice what it feels like to be in your body now. You may have noticed, again, sense in the room or the texture of your socks, but you may have noticed that your breath feels maybe a normal pace for you, or maybe it's a little agitated, a little shallow, or maybe it feels deep. Maybe you were able to feel your heart, maybe you weren't, and that's okay. There's absolutely no judgment about whatever the state of your breathing or heartbeat or anything else was. And just kind of pay attention to where you did find that holding. And if I have found that most of the time, if not every single time, when I bring my attention to a space where there's holding or bracing or tension, or when some of my clients do that, there's always a moment of a little bit of like a settling. And I don't mean if there was tension, there is no tension now, or anything like that. What I mean is it just kind of chills a little bit. And it's quite amazing how our bodies work, and how just bringing our attention towards something can really make it shift. And so, I want to kind of go over why it is that we did what we did. And so we started with orienting. So I'm not going to go into a deep science lesson about our brain or our nervous system, but I will say this. In our brain, we have what we call the amygdala, which is essentially the alarm system. And I like to say that the language of that alarm system are our senses, right? And so when we look around and kind of notice our surroundings, maybe notice where the door is, notice, our stability on our seat, or our grounding, our groundedness on the ground, feet on the ground, whatever it is. Notice smells, notice temperature, all those kinds of things. We're letting our alarm system know that we're safe. And we're also becoming more present in our present, right? Because oftentimes we're just scurrying from one room, one place to the next, and not really paying attention to what's around us. And if you're living with trauma and still struggling with it, we often are not paying any attention. We think we're paying so much attention with our hypervigilance, but we're actually paying no attention. We're not really seeing things that might be directly in front of us sometimes. So orienting is a nice way to begin to settle into the exercise, because you're telling your brain and you're telling your body that you're safe for that moment. Next, we notice our breathing and our heartbeat. Our breathing is both autonomic and something that we can manage, and our heartbeat, not so much, right? A little bit less so. And by bringing our attention there, if you stay with it, and especially if you stay with it long enough, you will start to feel the changes. And most likely you will begin to feel your breath settling in, maybe getting a little deeper, maybe getting a little slower, maybe having longer exhales. And you'll also start to notice that your heartbeat is, kind of getting into a normal rhythm that doesn't feel uncomfortable in any way. So that's the hope. It may be that you're checking in with your heartbeat and you're checking in with your breathing and it's all over the place. And that's okay. And it may be that you sit with that for a minute or so and now it's just slightly less all over the place, and that's fine too. But it's just kind of bringing our attention there and allowing for that little bit of settling to happen. Next, we are scanning our bodies to figure out, hey, where's my tension? Where's all that holding? Every single time I do this, no matter what, I always find that I'm holding my tongue at the roof of my mouth and I'm scrunching my toes. And I don't think to myself, oh, let me soften my tongue or let me loosen my toes. Just noticing that does that for me. So again, there's that softening that just happens with attention. And finally, the comforting stuff, right? What feels comfortable. And as human beings, we are wired to survive. And in order to survive, we're constantly gauging for threat. We're trying to figure out, am I safe? And since we're constantly looking for the things that are going to inhibit our safety, we sometimes aren't so good at noticing what actually feels good. And so coming back to what's comfortable, whether it's externally, whether we notice that, I know for me, my pants are kind of fluffy right now and they feel really soft and they're really comfortable, whether it's something like that, whether it's external or whether I'm able to tap into my body and say, wow, my chest, there's an openness here, there's a spaciousness here that wasn't there before, or maybe that I hadn't realized was there. And just bringing our attention to that which is positive and that's that which is comfortable is also a nice way to end that little practice. And I always suggest that we incorporate this pause throughout our day, especially during transition moments. So, again, when we're transitioning maybe from home into work or from work back home, taking a moment to just stop, get centered in order, tummy's making noise, in order to just be able to move on without kind of dragging everything that came before with you. So, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that understanding why it is that we're doing each of the steps helps you maybe buy into it a little bit more, and maybe you'll even set the intention of trying this another day. All right, I promised a couple of strategies. So the next meditation or mindfulness exercise I want to focus on is a very body-oriented meditation, and it's basically a pendulation. So in somatic experiencing, we talk about moving from what's comfortable to what's uncomfortable and back again, right? Moving from the blue, which is comfortable, to the red, which is uncomfortable, and back to blue. People refer to it in different ways. So this is a pendulation exercise. It's also an exercise where you will have to do a little bit of visualization. So if you're still comfortable in your spots, I know I'm going to move a little bit. So if you're still comfortable in your spots, I'm going to again invite you to either close your eyes or lower your gaze. And just maybe draw attention to the muscles around your face, softening those, softening your neck and shoulders, letting them relax, and really allowing yourself to arrive in this moment, in your spot. And again, bring your attention to your breathing, just kind of noticing your inhales and your exhales. going to ask you to call to mind something that has happened recently that was comforting, right? Whether it's you took a walk yesterday, or whether you had a lovely conversation with your partner, whatever it might be. Just kind of bringing into mind something comforting, something easy that you've experienced in the last week or so. And with your eyes closed or your gaze softened, I want you to really imagine yourself back and, in that moment, noticing the surroundings, noticing who you were with, if you were in fact with anyone, or noticing, whatever was happening. I'm really getting back to that space. In essence, inhabiting that moment in time. And as you're doing that, I want to I'm going to invite you to bring your attention back into your body and just kind of notice what it feels like in your chest when you are thinking about this easy moment, this comforting moment that's happened recently. Maybe putting a hand on your belly, just kind of noticing what that feels like as you're thinking about this easy moment. And just kind of let your attention go to any place in your body now that you really feel some sort of shift when you're thinking about this comforting moment and when you're trying to inhabit it. And really kind of, attempt to stay with those sensations in your body that are resourceful because you're thinking about something that is a resource, a memory that was positive. And just really notice what your body feels like when you're thinking on that. And we're going to shift gears. And I'm going to ask that you think about a time in the last week or so where you have faced a challenge. And please, not the most difficult challenge you've faced in the last week. A challenge that maybe on a scale of 1 to 10 is like a 5 or less, right? It's a manageable challenge. But still strong enough that you can feel yourself back in that moment, feel sensation in your body because of that moment. And just notice what happens when you're thinking about that. Again, beginning with our chest and maybe noticing what you feel like, what it feels like in there. Or what it feels like in your tummy. Or maybe your shoulders are feeling a little tense. Who knows? Whatever it is, just kind of bring your attention towards that. Those sensations in your body that you're feeling as you're thinking about a challenging circumstance. And I know it's uncomfortable, but just allow yourself another moment or so to stay with that. And now, let's bring about that initial comforting, easy moment. Let's kind of bring that back to mind. Try to transition back into it, using your senses and your mind's eye, kind of looking around and reminding yourself what was around you, who were you with, what were you saying, what was happening. Just really being with that moment. And then bringing your attention back to your body, maybe your chest, maybe your tummy, maybe your shoulders, and just kind of feeling the difference, whatever the difference might be. We're looking for shifts. We're not looking for release each time, just change. So whatever the change is that you might be feeling in your body, just kind of notice that as well. And when you're ready, I'll invite you to begin to notice your surroundings, like what are you hearing, or what are you smelling in the room, maybe noticing your feet on the ground if they were there, or your body being supported by your chair, whatever it might be. Maybe following the impulse to move if it's there. And when you're ready, and only when you're ready, you're going to slowly open your eyes, and you are going to join with me again on camera. Well, I'm on camera, you're on the other side, and just kind of notice what that was like. You know, these are two really simple exercises, and with this pendulation, what we're doing is we are tapping into resources that exist in our body, you know, even when we just conjure up a positive memory, and then also kind of tiptoeing into something uncomfortable, hanging out with it a little bit, only enough for us to feel that discomfort, not enough to feel overwhelmed, and then coming back into safety, into security, and into calm, into the resource. And that can be really great for tension, really great for perspective, really great for our nervous system, a little exercise for us to realize that what we need to heal is already within us. We can tap into those resources at any time. And so I hope that you might want to practice one or both of these on your own. And so enjoy that. And again, I'm Dr. Barbie Hessel with Simply Being Therapy in Nashville. And I look forward to talking with you again. Bye.